So the question of how good will Caleb Williams actually be is an interesting question nonetheless. Now, for those of you that are upset that Caleb painted his nails and has a pink phone, I remind you that Chicago, the city of Chicago, fell in love with one Dennis Rodman. All right, so on to the football. Now, of course, clearly the Chicago Bears at this point have already selected Caleb Williams with the number 1 draft pick, even though we are about a month away from the actual draft occurring. It is clear as water is wet that Caleb Williams will be a member of the Chicago Bears. Now, the real question is, will Caleb Williams actually turn into the next Bryce Young, or will he actually have a season similar to that of one CJ Stroud? Now, the truth is, drafting a QB with a top 5 pick is absolutely Tom Cruise risky business. It absolutely is. And a big part of that issue sort of revolves around the expectations that are actually put on a quarterback that goes super high in an NFL draft. Look, Tom Brady, who got drafted so late, had no expectations at all. Even a Patrick Mahomes, who had 9 teams actually pass him up before he got picked in a 10th spot, there were limited expectations on Patrick Mahomes, at least during the first year of his career in the NFL. Now, over the last 5 years, there have been 11 quarterbacks actually taken in the top 5. You've got your Bryce Young, your CJ Stroud, Anthony Richards, Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, Joe Burrow, Tua, Herbert, Murray, and of course, Dudley Do-Right himself, Daniel Jones. Look, at this point, I think it's safe to say Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, Bryce Young are all disappointments, if you will. Maybe there'll be a resurgence at some point in their careers, but to this point, they've been disappointments. Now you've got Trevor Lawrence, Kyler Murray, and Tua. They fall into the jury's still out on them. They prove to be good quarterbacks, but we're not sure any of those quarterbacks are actually going to be great. And then we have Burrow and Herbert, who I think we all agree at this point fall into that great category of what a National Football League quarterback should be. So for those math majors out there, of the 11 quarterbacks taken in the last 5 years, less than 20% of them have actually panned out. So where does that leave us with Caleb Williams? Now, look, statistically, Caleb is certainly right in line with all of those quarterbacks that were picked high. He has, in his career, had a season in which he passed for over 4,000 yards. His passing percentage has been close to 70%. Last season, Caleb Williams at USC threw 30 touchdowns against 5 picks, which, as I mentioned, statistically puts him right in the same company of a wide variety of QBs who have gone high in the first round of past NFL drafts. So, what makes Caleb Williams unlike many of those quarterbacks who have failed before him? Now, let me start with, quite frankly, the most important thing that a quarterback can have going into the National Football League. Patrick Mahomes was able to go into the Kansas City Chiefs. He was able to basically sit down for an entire season and watch the Chiefs play. The situation that a quarterback goes into the National Football League is almost as important as the talent that they actually bring with him. Now, I am not in any way claiming that the Chicago Bears situation is the best situation of all time for a quarterback to actually go into. That being said, though, when you think about where the Chicago Bears are today versus where they were a few years ago, let's face it, Caleb Williams is absolutely going into a better situation in Chicago. The Chicago Bears won 7 games last season. They're not the Carolina Panthers and the Houston Texans, at least at the start of last season. Caleb Williams is going into a much better situation than CJ Stroud did, and of course, Bryce Young did. Now, the Bears have also hired a new offensive coordinator in one Shane Waldron. Waldron actually spent some time working with Jared Goff, Russell Wilson, and most recently is basically attributed with the, and this could be a movie someday, with the resurrection of Geno Smith. I think that would be rated R. I'm just saying. So, Williams at this point, I think, coming into the league is certainly going to be in a better situation. Look, the Bears have some excellent wide receivers. They've made some good moves for wide receivers. They have an excellent running game, and I'm sure Waldron will focus in on the running game. But the other advantage is that Williams has is he did actually quarterback a pro-style offense with the USC Trojans over the past couple years. Another thing that Caleb Williams has done, and we're running video here and you can actually see it, is he has become very good at actually reading defenses. Now, mind you, those are college defenses that he's reading, but there is video after video after video of Caleb Williams actually going through his progressions. I would also like to point out that he didn't necessarily have the strongest offensive line in the world last year at USC, did he? In other words, Caleb Williams is actually entering the NFL not the way a lot of the other prima donna quarterbacks have entered the NFL that I listed off earlier, who had excellent offensive lines and had all the time in the world to make decisions. Caleb Williams proved at USC that he was absolutely a good decision maker. Look, he's got a strong arm. He can make all the throws. I mean, he can even make those long, deep bombs that would make even Al Davis smile, Mr. Commitment to Excellence. I'm just saying Caleb Williams, at least entering the league, is joining a team that is, quite frankly, on the rise. He's had significant experience dealing with a poor offensive line, only threw 5 interceptions last year against that offensive line. I think basically where this all leaves us is Caleb Williams going to be like Bryce Young, or is Caleb Williams going to be more like CJ Stroud when we sit back and look at what happens in the National Football League next season? And I think the answer and the safe bet, I mean, it's not often that there is an actual safe bet in the National Football League with a top tier quarterback. But this is about as close to that as you can get. In other words, he's good at reading defenses entering the National Football League. And yes, defenses are different in the NFL, but he's smart. He's mentally tough. He can make all the throws. He can throw that long bomb, as I mentioned. Look, I think if Caleb Williams can stay healthy, I'm not saying he's going to have the exact same year as CJ Stroud had last year. I think he'll probably throw a few more picks than CJ did. CJ only threw 5 picks in his first season in the NFL. But I wouldn't be surprised to see Caleb Williams absolutely throw for over 4,000 yards. And I wouldn't be surprised, and I can't believe I'm going to say this, I wouldn't be surprised to see Caleb Williams actually lead the Chicago Bears into the playoffs. All right, I want to know what you think. Is Caleb Williams going to be successful in the National Football League? Is he going to be a star, or is he going to be a busted star? I want to hear from you, North America. All right, check out our big underrated.com. Underrated.media. We couldn't get the .com. Underrated.media website when you have a chance. For the underrated I am Dave DeBaugh, wishing you all a tremendous rest of your sports viewing day. To the guitar riffs we go.